One of the last things I wanted to finish off was the top of this makeup drawer, but before I did that, I wanted to get to all the little things that were driving me nuts, and one of them was this stool. It just doesn't fit well underneath, and I just want it to be able to slide underneath, to have a little bit more room for my legs, and also there's not a ton of space from the bed to the desk, so I want to be able to just easily push it underneath. So on one of the days where I didn't have a ton of filming time, I just took the legs off, took off the little foam pads that they have at the bottom, and luckily these were nailed in and not one of the ones which stick down, because those eventually just come off. They're not very reliable. And then, to be honest, I used a nail file as a guide for how much I wanted to cut off. I could have found a measuring tape, but I didn't know where it was. I didn't want to waste time, so I just did that, screwed it back in and reattached the foam pads. And now I want to get the nail drawer. I'm not going to do a massive long section on this. All I wanted to do was add some dividers so that I could have one section for nails, one section for miscellaneous, and that is one of the side effects of getting things secondhand, but I will fix it eventually. And then this front section here is for my makeup brushes, but I will be making a proper makeup brush case for them soon, which I'm really looking forward to, but that's a video for another day. And now that the seat is done, this drawer is done, I did want to do another very quick go at the skincare drawer. At the moment everything's loose, it's driving me nuts, and while I am still figuring out my skincare routine, it doesn't need to be this disorganized. I can put dividers and still gradually work through the products which are perfect for me. It doesn't have to be disorganized. So I just got my glue gun, all the little dividers, cut them down to size and stuck everything together. I'll do a more detailed video in a few months once I know more about what my skincare routine is, but for now let's move on to the makeup drawer. The first thing is the hinges. I did a quick sketch based off some hinges I saw on Google, made sure that they fit, and then I cut that out. Once that was cut out, I double checked that they'd fit, because I have made this mistake before where I got too confident in my measuring and then it didn't work. Now that I'm sure that it fits, I have some old foam paper, I guess, which I think I bought for a project 8 years ago and I still hadn't used, so it really needed to get used. And I put this on top, outlined it, and then cut it all out.
Power of you, never cold, higher than life, worth that and full. Sun so bright in the room, when it hits me I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do. Running fast, rush from the dark, eyes that lining, 'cause I adore you.
Once they were all cut out, I took a few embossing tools and I just added some dents on it. I could have not done this, it wasn't necessary, but it just made the whole thing a little bit more interesting, so I decided to do that. And then I took some black wall paint, which I have tons left over because there's going to be a lot more rooms I'll be painting black. And then I decided to paint this. Took a bit of time because I did have to do a few layers, but at least it was relatively straightforward. I just took some baking paper on the sideboard so that I could leave it to dry, easily turn it over, and after a few coats it was done and ready to be painted with some gold outlining.
I for you. If the deal was on the line, we'd win thousands and maybe we'd be fine. Place a bet, we play the game, and all the noise it makes me trip a step. All the noise it makes me trip. All the noise, all the noise, all the noise.
Originally I'd planned to cover the whole top, but the thing is I like the grain of this wood. It's just the edges where the saw was a little bit too rough and splintered it. That's the part that I really want covered up, so I'm going to take some white card, paint it black. If I'd had a black card that would have been a lot faster, but I didn't, so this is just what I had to do to make do. Once I'd done the first coat, I did a second. One coat wasn't really enough. There were still a few places where you could just see a little bit of the white popping through, and I didn't want that effect. I wanted this to be completely black, so I did 2 coats. And then I started moving on to what I was going to do on the inside. One of my main problems, apart from the fact that that wood has just splintered a bit because I did have to remove some magnets, is that those magnets are really strong, and I think they're starting to shatter some of the pans that I've got in my palettes, and I really don't want that, so I need it to be softened out. So the idea was, once I'd cut some strips into this wood and finished the top level, is that I was going to get something soft. I did have some black foam, and the reason I didn't use that black foam on the top of the drawer is because I didn't want everything to be the same texture. I wanted to have that flat, smooth edging and then a slightly more puffy hinge, so that's why I didn't use it for the hinges. But for the paper, I just cut that down into strips, then I glued it down, and that was just with PVA glue. It wasn't anything particularly fancy, and if I ever change my mind about this, it's easy enough to fix. So once the edges were glued down, I then glued down the hinges, and then I went over it later with some gold edging, and I didn't film that part because at that point I was really tired and I just wanted to do it and then go to sleep. Now, with all of that painted, I'm going to be moving on to the inside of the lid. So the first thing I need to do is remove all those magnets, and also remove all the magnets from the old ottoman so that I can reuse them again. I marked out where I wanted to apply these, and then I started to remove everything from the old sheet that I'd taken from the ottoman, and that took forever, but I figured it was worth it, and once it was all done it would look lovely. This is the black spongy card that I told you about, so I measured that out, made sure that it was all outlined so I could cut it down to size, and then I started sticking everything down.
Thousands, maybe we'd be fine. Place a bet, we play the game, and all the noise it makes me trip a step. All the noise it makes me trip. All the noise, all the noise, all the noise. 'Cause I'm holding out for you, holding out for you, I for you. 'Cause I'm holding out for you, holding out for you, I for you. I adore you, I adore. 'Cause I'm holding.
And if you want to hear a funny story, after doing all this and removing all the magnets from the inside of the drawer and from that card from the old ottoman, this didn't work. It was a complete and utter failure. I thought I'd put the magnets the right way up, and I hadn't. So some of them were very happy to hold on to anything metal that was near them, and some of them just completely rejected it. And I thought I was being clever by testing it first, but I only tested it on the corner of the shelf. So once I'd cut everything out, put the foam on top, and then tried to stick everything down, this is what happened. At first I thought it was just a small mistake that could easily be fixed, and some of the smaller items were okay because they just needed one magnet, but the bigger items, as soon as I tried to close it, would just fall off, which eventually is going to really damage those eyeshadows on the inside, so that wasn't really a permanent option. And eventually I realised I was just going to have to tear the whole thing off and try again. You know, I'm just kind of done at the moment. I just wasted my free time this morning doing this drawer and I messed up. And you know what, I can't be bothered just making do. I'm just going to buy a big magnetic strip, I'm going to cut it to size and I'm going to stick it on because I am utterly fed up and I just want this drawer to be done already. And if I seem a little bit tired and fed up today, that's because I've had exactly 2 hours sleep and I can't be bothered with this. So I'm just going to buy some magnetic sticky roll thingamabobbin from eBay. It's going to cost me £3, it's going to save me my sanity, and I'm going to stick it on. So I'm just going to wait for that to arrive. So this arrived today, which I'm so pleased about. I can finally finish off this drawer. It might be a tiny bit too small, so we will see. I'm going to open this up and then let's see if it will actually fit. First things first, I'm going to have to, oh, that's clever, that's magnetic. That's cool. I can use that as a fridge magnet. I might actually decorate that. That would be quite cool. If I take this and then paint that, I could make it look a bit like a scarab. Yeah, that would be cool. I might try that, so I'll, cool little freebie I can turn into something else. And then this, trying to see how well things stick to it. So, okay. Ooh, that's good. And upside down. Okay, this might actually work. Oh, good. And that's quite nice and rubbery as well, so that solves my problem of the eyeshadows cracking because they're a bit too hard on this. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to take all these little magnets off, and then I'm going to have to cut this to size, and then I should be done, hopefully.
The power of you, never cold, higher than life, worth fighting for. Sun so bright in the room, when it hits me I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do. Running fast, rush from the dark, eyes that lining, 'cause I adore you. I adore you. And all the noise, it makes me trip step. All the noise, it makes me trip.
Thankfully I didn't make as much of a big mistake with this one as I did previously, but it was ever so slightly tilted a little bit too much to the left. So I ended up having to shave a tiny amount off the side. As you can see on that top left side, there is still a tiny little bit which isn't quite covered, but because if I have a little bit of that magnetic sheet left, what I might do maybe in a week's time when I've got over my frustrations with this project is I might cut a small strip out and just cover that up, but for the moment it's really not a big issue for me. I'm just happy that everything sticks to it, and because it's got that lovely rubberized surface, it's just so much more gentle on the eyeshadow palettes, and the eyeshadow pans don't want to explode every time they get put against it, so that's fantastic. And this is what the final thing looks like. I've got a nice ornate cover. When you open it up, I have my lip liners, the primer, my Claire's BB cream. This one's a bit interesting. I'm using an old tobacco tin, and that is what I'm using for my powder. And actually I need to move this from my skincare drawer, so I've got this little, what's the word I'm looking for, pot, which I'll just pour out whatever loose powder I want in there and then apply it to my face. And everything else is stuck nicely on the magnetic panel. It's easy to look at and it looks pretty. And for the moment, that's exactly what I need.